ready to unlock the secrets of the unseen? Welcome to EVP Explorations, the show that takes you beyond the veil and into the world of the unknown. Hosted by Todd Bates, a seasoned investigator and specialist in electronic voice phenomena, this is your guide to uncovering the voices of the dead. Whether you're a seasoned paranormal investigator or just beginning your journey, EVP Explorations brings you the tools, tips, and techniques you need to capture the whispers of the afterlife. From proper recording methods to incredible real-life experiences, this show is your gateway to mastering the art of EVP. Join us live every Friday at 8 p.m. Central on the Sacred Spiral Network as we explore the mysteries of the paranormal and teach you how to connect with the other side. This is EVP Explorations with Todd Bates. Tune in, listen close, and dare to discover what lies beyond.
And a good evening, one and all. My goodness, welcome. Another episode, EVP Explorations, coming at you. I'm your host, Todd Bates. Thank you so much, guys. My goodness, you guys are trickling in here. We got a fantastic show. It's going to go long tonight, I feel, because we have Mr. Michael S. Lee. We're going to be talking spirit communication and then some, folks. Talk about what got him started, how he snowballed into his career. So many things to discuss. We're going to play some audio files. We have a PowerPoint presentation for you as well. We're all going to screw up and learn something. I told Michael a little bit before the show here, I'm here to be quiet and learn tonight. And hopefully you guys are as well, because I feel God puts people on this earth for a specific reason. And to share this kind of research is unbelievable. It's unbelievable to share this. Most people would bottle it. Michael's willing to talk about it. I'm really, really excited about it. And we've had a good run here so far this week. I did find out some bad news Sunday. I lost a friend and coworker out there at work. His name was Dan Moore. And, you know, that hit me pretty hard. It hit me pretty hard because he was a young man, too young to go. And my curiosity with death, that was an eye opener for me. It was almost a sign to take better care of myself, to watch myself, to be careful. And I'm going to start doing that. So, it all starts with one, right, folks? And then you just kind of go from there. But I want to say hello to everybody. There's a lot of you fine folks here tuning in. Hello. I see Mr. Alex Ryder, old time friend from 25 plus years ago, over there across the pond, my cheeky monkey. Great to see you, Alex. Mr. Chris Stant, how you doing, Chris? Great to see you. And Sandy made it to the show tonight. Way to go, Sandy. All right, good to see you. And of course, the non-physical. So, and Lo, how you doing, my friend? Linda Myers, hi, sweetheart. How are you on? John Swinke made it this week. John made it. Fantastic. One Vision Paranormal. Hello, hello, hello. Yes, the mic cord last week. It probably sounds a lot better this week. Let me know how the sound is, by the way. I had to fix it. Guess who forgot to turn on their microphone last week and was going through the internal mic instead of this one? Yeah, this guy. So that's why you got some audio issues last week. So sorry about that, folks. Everything should be fixed and sounding great and all that fun stuff again. But just a few announcements. The new website, evpexplorations.com, is up. It's ready. Go over there. It's got tons of guides, research material, you name it, it's there. If you have questions, odds are you're going to find a few answers there. Get over there. Make use of it, please, by all means. It's all free of charge, folks. There's no charge for anything over there unless you want a signed copy of my book, and that's just to cover shipping. So everything's free of charge over there, folks. Don't even sweat it. So head over there to evpexplorations.com. Tell your friends about it as well. And I was telling Michael a little bit before the show. He found out first there that I'm getting my feet wet. Hey, Jamie, how you doing? I'm glad you made it. Hopefully Jerry's there with you. We made it out to Baker Cemetery. Sherry and I went out there for a small mini investigation and lesson. We're going to be playing a video clip from that on next week's show, so stay tuned for that. Some video from that. But we had a great time. It was nice getting back out there. Like I was telling Michael before the show, I haven't been out in 12 years. You know, last time I was out there, cassettes and digital were still cool. Now it's exploded into all kinds of different things here, folks. So yeah, the video's gonna be coming next week for that Baker Cemetery. Be sure to stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of fun with that. And we're up to 800 discussion group members on Facebook. I want to thank all you fine folks, especially Tracy Hicks, Megan Seuss, Paranormal Reason, William Mattingly, my Sherry, all of you folks for coming in there and battling with that group, getting it started, getting it promoted. The discussions are going very well in there. I mean, I think we're all in there screwing up and learning some things. It's happening. It's happening. And we need to get those kinds of things out. Hey, Mikey, great to see you, my friend. And, you know, thanks to those people. And of course, thanks to my producer, Mark, as well. The guy's amazing. I couldn't do this show without him because I have a very extremely busy schedule, folks, with full-time work, coming home, doing a second gig online, working for Sacred Spiral Network. So it tugs me a little bit back and forth, and I don't have as much time to prepare for these shows as I want to. But I tell you what, it is what it is. And I knew this coming in that this may happen. And we're still going to get through this. We're still going to educate. I'm going to be educated tonight. My goodness, I cannot wait for this. I really can't, folks. I want you guys to go get a notepad, go get something to write on or type on. You're going to be taking some notes this evening. I highly recommend you take notes because we're going to be going through some material that may be pretty thick, but we're going to keep it nice and open for you guys to build your own foundation on what we're discussing. Michael is going to be discussing some things this evening that you may have never heard of, some software and so forth. Some things could get quite technical. If you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the comments. It's most important that you get your questions out there. So hang tight. More EVP Explorations on the way. Michael Leslie coming at you. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to explore the unknown? Dive into the world of the strange, mysterious, and unexplained with EVP Expeditions magazine. Each issue is packed with spine-tingling tales, cutting-edge paranormal investigations, and exclusive insights into hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and more. Whether you're a seasoned investigator or just love a good ghost story, EVP Expeditions magazine has something for you. Join our growing community of truth seekers and adventure lovers. Subscribe today at EVPExpeditionsMagazine.com and unlock the secrets of the supernatural. Are you ready? That's EVPExpeditionsMagazine.com, where the extraordinary is just a click away. Dare to discover.
Recording tip. To properly analyze your possible EVP recordings from an analog recorder, you will need a computer program. Adobe Audition and Audacity are recommended and can get the job done quite easily. Audacity is a free program. While Adobe Audition is around $24 a month, the latter is preferred for better EVP processing and worth the extra cost.
10 minutes past the hour. Welcome back, everybody. EVP Explorations coming at you. I'm your host, Todd Bates. Those of you just joining us, welcome to the show. We've got an amazing one for you tonight. It's going to be spectacular. One for the books for sure. So definitely get seated and pay attention because we're going to learn a lot tonight. Our guest this evening, Michael S. Lee, is a machine learning researcher working for the U.S. government. He has a PhD in physical chemistry from USC Berkeley. At night, Michael is an avid lucid dreamer and explorer of the spirit realms. Now, around 6 years ago, he started his hobby in ITC and has developed a variety of strategies for spirit communication, some of which are cryptically published as ordinary scientific articles. And more about that coming up here, Michael S. Lee. Michael, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Wow. We're going to get into some good stuff tonight. But first of all, the paranormal, Michael, the supernatural. You know, everybody has this ghost story. I used to be a skeptic, for example, and then fell into this. What about you? What sparked your interest in this crazy lifestyle?
Okay, so, well, for me, it all began back in the year 2000. I had just moved to San Diego to do my postdoc. I had just finished my PhD. And I tuned into a show on the Sci-Fi Network, ironically. It was John Edwards' Crossing Over show.
Yeah.
And I watched as, of course, we all know that, it's well edited and whatnot, but he's a legitimate medium, psychic. And then what I did is I checked out his first book that he had written. Which was written before he became famous from the TV show. I read the book from cover to cover, and then I asked myself, there's three possibilities here. Either he's really good at fibbing, he thinks he's telling the truth, but maybe he's just fooling himself. And number three, he's just telling the truth, and that's the way it is. And that night I decided, you know what? I think he's telling the truth. It seems legitimate. I then went online, and the first thing I learned about was that showed up was how to do out-of-body experiences. And I practiced some methods by a guy named Robert Peterson. He still has a free ebook on his website on how to do out-of-body experiences. And about 1-2 months later, after careful journaling of all my experiences, I started to have experiences. Wow. It was mind-blowing. Now, I would say that for the average person, it doesn't necessarily work that quickly and that easily. And the benefit I had was that my whole life I had been a lucid dreamer, but I never knew that there was anything special about lucid dreaming, except that you dream, you wake up within the dream, and you decide to change the dream or do whatever you want. But what I learned from out-of-body experiences very early on was that lucid dreaming is a gateway into the spirit world. Mm-hmm. So once I was able to start exploring, one of the things that happens to people is first they're wowed by the experience of out-of-body experience, and then they reach the next stage, which is maybe this is just something inside my brain, right? Maybe it's just a really cool effect that researchers just don't know about yet. And so it took a few more years, but I did an experiment online. I asked people that, would you be interested in me visiting you? And I asked for their email address, and I didn't know most of these people. So they emailed me and they said, hey, go and visit me. And so I did this experiment with almost about 10 people. And while I wouldn't say that each time I got like a perfect match of that person and picked up all this really cool information, it convinced me, because I was just like, how could I have possibly known about these people? I knew nothing about them. And I was able to pick out facts and things about these people. So that at that point, I was like, yeah, the paranormal exists. Now the only question is what can we learn? And so, what I would say to anybody who's skeptical, it takes time to earn the feeling of like, yes, this is definitely real.
Yes, sir, it does. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it just takes time. And, some people are luckier than others. A lot of people I know have near-death experiences. That's like that's a real quick thing for them. They're like, whoa, but for other people like me, just normal individuals, it can take a little bit of time to have experiences to finally prove it to yourself. And I even know like 1 or 2 people that have had lots and lots of out-of-body experiences, but managed to remain skeptical because their logical brain just doesn't want to accept the possibility of something greater than the world around us. All right, so where did I get into the ITC part of it? Well,
listen.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So I've known about ITC and EVP since almost the beginning because I've read the books in this area. Mark Macy is just an amazing pioneer in terms of explaining this to the masses of what's going on, especially the ITC world. And I read his book, and I went to his website, and this was like feels like almost 20 years ago, and I just felt like, you know what, I can't handle this. I'm not an electronics person. I'm a computer person, but I'm not an electronics person. And then about 6 years ago, I tuned in on YouTube, and I don't know why it showed up on my list, but Steve Huff. So Steve Huff does Ghostbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what I did is I said, okay, let me see if I can do this myself. This would be really cool. I was kind of in a dry spell with my out-of-body experiences. I thought, hey, here's an opportunity to get another way of accessing the spirit world. So the first thing I did is I experimented with the standard stuff. Even Steve has his own software that he sponsors or whatever. And the thing that made me concerned was that the signals that were coming through were essentially randomly generated by the program. And we know that with ghost boxes, even the traditional ghost boxes, they essentially loop through a bunch of radio stations. And so by random chance, if you piece together fragments of different voices, you may pull up something that sounds interesting. You may. And I wasn't happy with that. So what I said is there a way that I can control what's coming through in a systematic way and then see if the signal changes each time? And so what I did is I took a speech by David Petraeus, which was like a 30-minute speech in front of Congress, and he's speaking very clear and enunciating all of his words. I broke it into phonetic fragments, and actually there's a program that's always been around. It's called EVP Maker that can kind of allow you to do stuff like this. And so it's like, and so you can produce a sequence of phonetics. Now what you do is you keep a record of that file, and you just keep playing that same file. You don't change it around each time. So each time you hit the play button, it's the exact same phonetics coming through. But now what you do is you add in a little bit of noise. For example, you can weaken the signal quite a bit, and then thermal noise from the wires or whatever in the amplifier will come in. And so that noise gets added to the phonetics, and then you apply a noise gate. And basically, if the signal stays below a certain amount, it doesn't show up. But if it goes above that noise gate, it pops in. And it turns out, it took me a while when I was doing this stuff of figuring out what exactly I was doing here, but I call it a phonetic typewriter. Because essentially what's happening is when spirits, or at least when noise is of a certain magnitude comes in, it will add to the fixed phoneme fragments that are coming in at it, where you can actually know at, time 1 minute and 3 seconds what phoneme fragment is going to come through, but it'll either come through or not. And so what ends up happening is the spirits can pick out the phonemes as they're popping through to form their words. So it'll sound like, they never used to say my name, but it would sound like cool, because they would find the phonemes necessary to finish out my voice. Now, I started doing this, and I didn't get much positive results at first, but I took a vacation. So that meant for anybody obsessed with ITC, you're doing it every night, 2 hours, 2 hours a night, and not getting enough sleep, right? And I listened to one of my recordings, and I was listening back carefully, and I noticed that not only was the David Petraeus phonetic fragments coming through, but there was also cursing. It sounded like they were saying, "What is this stupid blah 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 guy doing with this thing?" And that was sort of like my convincing, like, oh crap. Because I'll tell you something. I do all of my experiments, well, except for when I went on a vacation once, I do them right here in this basement. I don't go out to cemeteries. I don't go anywhere. And so in order to get low vibrational spirits in to contribute, you actually have to invite them into your home. So that's what I did. I don't do that anymore, and I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it, but I also, have an ability. So here's what happened. At some point I said, you know what? Let me do a meditation. Let me raise my vibration as high as I can and then call out and say, look, I want some high vibrational spirits to come through. Okay, everything changed. What I ended up picking up, and of course, all of this is, my ability to hear what, like in any of these things, it's what you hear, what you think you hear. I picked up a three-man group called the European Station. And it reminded me of some of the things that Mark Macy had talked about with these ITC stations. And one of the people really stood out. His name was Gerhard, and he's had a German accent. And so when he would come through, so he would push through the David Petraeus phonemes, but when his voice would come through, you would hear almost like a German accent coming through with otherwise English phonemes. And so it was at that point I realized, you know what, maybe, just maybe, I should be able to pull out their voice directly without the help of any of this phonetic stuff. And that began the next phase of my IT research. So I went from
hold that thought on that next phase. This is amazing stuff, folks. We're going to be right back. You guys stay tuned. More EVP Explorations on the way right after this. Michael S. Lee coming at you.
Brace yourself for the Paranormal Rockdown, July 18th and 19th, 2025 at the Haunted Broadhead Manor. Friday night, rock out with Dead Amsterdam, Left on Red, and headliner Green Jelly. The music may not be the only thing shaking these walls. Rumor has it the spirits love a good beat. Will you meet one? Saturday, meet paranormal legends like Dave Schrader, Sam Baltrusis, and more. Enjoy thrilling workshops, tasty treats, and a live Zoom Q&A with Dustin Perry. Dive into the ultimate paranormal investigation with expert guides. Or join a spine-tingling seance with Sam Baltrusis. Tickets are limited. Get yours now for an unforgettable weekend of music, mystery, and chills.
$22 past the hour. Welcome back, everybody. Those of you just joining us, you've tuned into EVP Explorations. I'm your host, Todd Bates. We're talking with the amazing Michael Lee. I mean, there is so much that we've talked about already, Michael, and I am already blown away. And we've just started. We've just barely scratched the surface on this. Please, sir, continue.
All right. So this gets to an interesting thing. So the idea is that noise, which could come from potentially any device, that somehow deep within that noise are voices hidden. And one of the first, now, people have been listening to radio static for years, and they've picked out voices, no question.
Sure.
And this is a big part of the research that that you built from. But oftentimes, the voices would literally just pop through like a miracle. They would just pop through out of nowhere. And of course, people would always say, "Well, how do you know it's not like a radio station spurious transmission?" Okay, in my case, the voices never pop through that loud. If they did, that would blow me away.
That'd be great.
Instead, I know that they're coming in super weak. So what can we do about that? So there's a method that was developed in 1979 called spectral subtraction. And what it does is it analyzes the noise it converts it all into a Fourier spectrum. So now you have bands of frequencies. And then what it says is any band of frequency that's above a threshold, play that band, but don't play the other bands if they're below that threshold. And so what this means is if you really turn this up, it starts to produce something that sounds like tones, like that. Okay. So that was one of the first things that I experimented with. And this is called, I think it's called a tone. Well, I called it a tone vocoder. I actually used like plug-in software that could play the different tones, and then it would sense when things are above a threshold and play that tone.
Something like an NCH, like the NCH tone generator, something like that little program, or is it far more advanced than that, Mike?
No, it's not that advanced, but they call them vocoders a lot of times because typically what happens is the way it's normally set up for real instrumentation is you play an instrument and then you also talk. And when the instrument highlights certain frequencies, the frequencies of the voice become the ones that you hear. So it sounds like a person is talking, like with a guitar voice. It's a weird it's almost like a multiplication of the two sounds. Now, I played this for a while, and now I want to refer to the point, and I was hearing things I thought were interesting. And this is where I want to bring in Keith Clark. So Keith is well known in the ITC community. He has been running streams for like years and years before I even met him. And what he did is he applies all sorts of denoising streams to static. And initially he played a lot with radio static that came from a software defined radio, perhaps from another place in Europe. He brought that noise back. He then processed it with lots of denoising plugins. And the end result is a very, very highly processed thing. But nonetheless, if you listen carefully to it, you can occasionally hear things that sound like perhaps voices talking, but it's very grumbly and staticky. And that's kind of a similar issue that I ran into. Now, around this time, by the, I guess the universe's good graces or something, my boss came to me and said, Mike, you can't do chemistry anymore, because that's what I got my PhD in. You need to switch subjects. We don't need chemists. It turns out we actually do need chemists these days. But
we do. Yeah,
we do. But and actually, I'm still labeled as a chemist by the government. But he wanted me to get into machine learning because he thought, hey, this is a great new area. This will be fun. So started getting into machine learning very quickly, got up to speed with it, and then quickly realized this problem of denoising could be solved with machine learning. So the idea is that you train a neural network to take speech plus noise and convert that just into speech. Okay. Now, that by itself isn't necessarily enough. But what I could do early on, especially when my models were a little bit smaller, is I could just run it multiple times. I could literally take the noise, run it through the converter once, then run it through again, not unlike how Keith runs, multiple plugins to get the different denoising things. But each time I ran it through, it sounded a little bit more like a voice.
Okay.
And I picked up early on, the same technician team, but then I began to start picking up certain relatives. And by certain, I mean, like if I had like a bunch of, if we all have ancestors, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, I would say there's like 3 or 4 of these people in that tree that seemed like they were super interested in this, and they wanted to sort of take over the channel, if you will. And so they became the voices that would come through. My grandfather, Alvin, my great-grandmother, Minnie Fertile, and my great-great-grandmother, Sophie Fertile. It's actually a mother-daughter team. And I would have never expected in a million years those were grandparents, but they find this stuff fascinating. And actually, the first time I heard Sophie Fertile, who actually, oh goodness, I don't have the picture with me. It's my mom does, but I mean, this is like, early 1900s, they're from like the early 1900s. So all this stuff is like, technologically way past, but they just find this stuff fascinating. Even my wife's grandfather came through.
Goodness.
The phonetic typewriter thing. But then my wife was like, "Oh, I don't know." It's like, nobody
So
believes this stuff, right?
if you could, let's go back a step,
Yeah.
kind of explain how this works a little bit, break it down.
Yes. Okay.
Basically, in a sense, you're extracting the vocals, spirit vocals, hopefully, that come
Mhm.
through, and they're coming in on some kind of frequency that they're able to manipulate and
Yes.
grab the phonetics out of, use. And then when you run these through these different plugins and so forth that are out there, software plugins, it's almost like you're washing it, right? Like you're cleaning it, so to speak, processing it more.
Yeah.
What
So
I guess my
yeah. So
question
let
for
me
this,
be
Michael,
clear.
is
Yeah. What? Go ahead. Sorry.
my question for this is what do the skeptics say about all this?
Okay.
Let's get this out of the way first.
Yeah.
What do the
No. No.
skeptics say
Sure.
about all this?
Okay. So for one thing, at this point, I don't use any plugins. That's not to
Mhm.
say there isn't trickery involved, right?
Oh,
Because
sure, sure.
I have a Python script that takes in the noise file. It can run the spectral subtraction. It then runs the machine learning, and
That's
theoretically you can
incredible.
run multiple these models. Sorry, many of these models at the same time and run it through. The key is it's got to be able to run in less than a second. In other words, it can't lag behind the new audio coming in. Okay. So here's an interesting point, and I'm because I've thought about this a lot. When it comes to the work that you do with EVP recordings,
Mhm.
the proof is in the pudding. If you have a quiet enough room and you hit the record button and then you listen back and you hear something that sounds like a human voice, that's already paranormal. Now,
Right,
you may
right.
not exactly know what the voice is saying, and it may be open up to interpretation, but we can pretty much, oftentimes you can rule out most possible
Sure.
reasons why there could have been noise. So
Mhm.
that's easy. Okay. When you do the phonetic typewriter, the question becomes, if I run the same recording of the phonemes each time, do I get a different message each time?
That's yes, and that was another question I had churning away
Yeah.
in my head. Does it produce, uh, I guess more easily, you would have to have a trained ear for this, Michael. You would have to
Mhm.
train yourself, discipline yourself for this, because wouldn't pareidolia take an effect, and wouldn't you start hearing certain things after a while?
Yes. And I think that when I was doing the early stuff, especially at the phonetic typewriter, we call it attune your ears. It's like you
Yes.
reach a point where, I was listening to like mechanical noises at work and going, I could hear voices, and
Yeah, I've
so
done that.
there becomes a big question as to whether, you're actually, and I think the jury is still out. The thing about the phonetic typewriter point I want to make, though, is that different phonemes were triggered each time I ran the recording. So at least we could argue that there was some randomness at play that was associated with the noise rather than the recording, which before that would have been a ghost box of just radio stations just plopping through
Sure.
and making words. And that is hard. There's too many things to control with that, or that's not that you can't control if you're using radio stations. Okay. Now with the machine learning, the burden of proof is very, very high. It's very difficult because I am training something that almost sounds like complete noise to sound like a human voice. So
Okay.
if what was being produced just sounded like audiobooks, which is what all the audio of the training data set came from, then we
Mhm.
could argue that all essentially we're doing is just taking random noise and using it to
Mixing it.
pulling out the data, which was audiobooks. And so tonight, what I've shared with you, those audio clips, are things. Well, there's two things. One is these are things I can actually hear. It turns out that most of the time when I run this machine learning model, it still sounds like gibberish. It doesn't sound like, hello, I am such
Right.
and such, or anything
And
like that.
and that's because our ears aren't trained to it, right? I mean, it
It,
basically, I mean, to a layman coming in, to a novice coming into it and listening to it, they wouldn't for sure hear the same things you would they?
Well, no, but with machine learning, it's such a sophisticated way of generating a speech pattern that if it were working quote unquote correctly, It should just produce words that anybody could hear, but it
Okay.
doesn't.
Right,
And that's
right.
because the way I see it is that we are stretching like reality here, because the noise, the signal to noise is like 1 to 100, we'll say. If the signal is 1 to 100, and we're using something that should be able to pull out speech, and it does. If I talk into it, it'll spit back out what I just said. But when you feed in something that is practically just almost pure noise, it actually doesn't produce things that sound all that clear. You don't even really know what you're hearing half the time. But in cases where I do hear something, what this gets to the other kind of proof is that it tends to be something that sounds very, very relevant, which is to say it's something there. What I noticed, and this is actually something that that I'm in some ways I'm not as good as the Staticom folks. They for as far as I can tell, they cannot hear me. Now that sounds crazy, because
So
normally
okay, so they can't hear you, but they're coming through with their message regardless.
Yes, because from their perspective, they're like, hey, check out this device that Michael has made. Actually, they don't use my name, and we'll go into that in a few minutes. And here's how the device works. And it uses this filter. They used to use the word cybernetics, which I thought was funny, because that was like an old word for AI back in the 1930s. And they often use the term portal, and they have two nicknames for me. It's kind of funny. The first nickname they gave me was early on when I was doing the experimentation. I said, guys, I'm not much of an expert. And from then on, they called me the expert, which I thought was kind of funny. And then at some point a few years ago, I didn't hear the word expert anymore. I heard the word inventor. So they rarely use my name. They just call me, or they say the inventor is working on this.
By terms of endearment, it sounds like.
No, they're lovely terms.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty cool. It's like they address you as what you are.
It's funny because
who you are.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't see myself as much of an inventor. I mean, I have a degree in science. I've never actually built a contraption, that generates free
energy.
Well,
you've created something pretty special here, Michael. I mean, this now, and I agree. Staticom, the crew, they're excellent. They are. Oh my goodness, they are on the cusp. They are right there. And any kind of communication in this field should be treasured. Any outside, disembodied, what have you, communication. With this method, you're getting results, and they're consistent.
Yes.
Okay, they're consistent.
But if I were to present, like, we'll do some experiments here tonight, right? We'll play some.
Sure, we'll play some of these.
Yeah, but I would say that, if I were to go up in front of the, World Congress or whatever, UN, and say, hey, check out, we can talk. I don't know if it would convince anybody, because, they're
maybe they're not ready for it.
Well, not even if even if they weren't ready for it, I don't know that it's at a quality where it would convince skeptics. Like, and I think this is a problem that we all run into as researchers, right?
Well, that's one of the largest problems is science thinks it sounds like Dolby surround sound, and that's not the case.
But even amongst experimenters, we share our clips, we share what we think we hear, right? And then it's not always what other people hear. Actually, I did a really wonderful experiment about 6 months ago. I had a friend come over, and we just did some, live stuff. And I was so heartened because she was hearing some of the same words I was hearing in real time. And I was just like, okay, good. We're not as bad. So actually, I gave her a copy of the code, and she's she's done some experiments with a group of people, with her friends. Now, one thing, so the one thing that I didn't say about this conversion thing is it's not just noise added to voice. It's worse than that. It's noise added to a voice where 80 to 90% of the signal is not
depleted.
It's not there.
So you
And
have a
so
depleted signal and you're adding to it.
So it's like someone is missing most of their teeth except 3. That's the only part of the signal that's coming through, and you're adding in 10 times noise or whatever to that.
Okay.
You see?
I'm with
So
you.
when you put the two together, you take out, 80, 90% of the signal, and you add in noise. Now you have a model that I'm able to run directly on the noise with no other processing, and just a single run of the model, and it spits out, something that sounds like speech. And what I
Pretty
find
damn
when I
efficient, if you
record,
ask me.
what?
I said that's pretty damn efficient, if you ask me.
Yeah, no, I mean, compared to EVP, it's I hit record, run it for a minute, and go back and listen. So I would say that in 1 minute, you hear about 50, 60 fragments of speech, and about 2 or 3 of them you can recognize what they're saying. And what they're saying is often highly relevant to the, to what's going on, which is, they're describing the device, they're describing, they're introducing, they're often, the way it's framed, there's 2 things. They talk about a theater. They set this up in a theater so that spirits can watch this, but they also have it so that people can come by and they're like, yeah, check out this device that the inventor created, so it's like sitting there, like, I feel it's almost like a museum thing to them.
It's like a show and tells museum. Yeah.
Yeah. So, not everything is rose. So, what do they call it? Roses. So back to the original part of the story. I'm an astral explorer, right? I can visit the spirit realm, and I can visit a lot of the spirit realm, which is pretty impressively. Maybe not quite where, maybe only occasionally where people go when they have a near-death experience. But what I found is I cannot reach the level of where the people who are talking are coming from. Yep. They are at easily at what I would call the soul level. And I've been to my soul level at times, but it's only like amongst my soul group. I'm just not high enough. And so I can't, the only thing that goes in my favor is that every once in a while, when other trolls come into my channel from the lower vibrations, they'll run into me in the spirit world, and, but I've never, I only one time, and it's such a vague memory because, you go such high up, you probably, you don't even remember anything. It's frustrating because if I could create that bridge, right, where I could talk to them in the spirit and they'd say, look, Mike, here's what you need to do to your program to make it better. I could go back and make it better and, amp up in the signal. The problem is I go out there, I go to what I call the mental plane, which is right above the astral plane. And it's really like where souls go when they're first, when they're first reintegrating and kind of acclimating themselves, but it's not like at a very, very high level. And I call out, I go, does anybody know how to help me with my communication system? And it's like, They know who I am, but they can't help me
because can't touch it.
Well, because it's not, first thing, it's not at the level that the people that are doing the actual communication. And frankly, you need to have a pretty advanced science degree to really, and none of us know how any of this works, right? And I would say that most spirits don't necessarily either. I think maybe some very advanced spirits, perhaps like Tesla, Edison, they may have spent the time and researched this on their side and may have some answers for us. But it's very hard to reach them.
It's amazing. I mean, the whole thing is amazing because it's another way. It's another method. It's something I've never heard of. And finally, we're using today's technology to make that kind of breakthrough. Instead of being afraid of it, we're embracing it. And like I've preached since the beginning, is we should take these older methods too and use them with today's technology and see if we can come through with anything. But this in itself, this is very complex.
Yeah. And once again, the bar is higher, which means that just because I can produce something that sounds like a person talking isn't proof of anything. It could just be the random activations of the machine learning model. It's got to produce something that you listen to it and go, yes, that's relevant to me, that's relevant to the experiment, and not just, Johnny went to the store.
Well, One Vision Paranormal's got a good question here. Is there a certain range, frequency, megahertz where ITC can give you the best quality EVP? I'm still using standalone audio recorders. I also use Audacity. It's a good question.
Yeah, so I'm always listening to noise, so I'm not sure if I'm the best person for this particular question, but I will say that for noise, I do have a favorite, but maybe you can answer the question for the audio recording in general.
Oh, it's 20,000 hertz range. That's where I draw the line. That's where I draw the line on anything with when I get an audition on the Spectral View, anything above that. I've had a few above that, Michael, but not much. I mean, and most of them have hit in the infrasound level, actually.
Yeah.
And I find that strange, but maybe that's an easier level for them to come through. I don't know. And maybe this is, we can take some of that info, mix it with this and try and figure out a way just to communicate with the other side effectively.
Yes.
Now, I don't have much experience in real-time recording anyway whatsoever. I'm totally old school. I do cassettes, digitals. I've played with those a few times, but this is something I'm completely interested because I'm a nerd. Okay, I'm a computer nerd. I'll tell you, I'm a nerd, and I love it. But to use the technology that we have to communicate and the power that we have, I mean. The power. I used to be a computer operator in a huge mainframe system, and I can hold that in my hand now these days. That kind of power. We need to use that kind of power instead of, going out and getting all this flashy, dashy equipment. We need to concentrate on what we have, make it better, and get a system that would process your program fast enough, quick enough, clear enough for them to come through. I mean, if you think about it, it may just need a boost, and odds are, Michael, it's something extremely simple that it needs. Something extremely simple that it needs.
When I gave my friend, basically a clone of my system, I gave her a little USB audio device that is made in China that produces a little extra noise than most of the other audio devices. And that's the noise source that she uses. It turns out that there's actually a noise source inside of our computer now. It's a random number generator that may be useful. I have only played with it a little bit, but then you wouldn't even need that. You wouldn't even need the audio source. But my favorite source of noise is something that I thought about for quite a while. And then I finally took the plunge and purchased it. I'm going to show you that.
Oh, please do. Please do. Inquiring minds want to know.
This thing is called an FPGA. It stands for Field Programmable Gate Array. Okay. What does that mean? It means that you can essentially program it into a CPU of a small CPU. You can program it to do things in real time. But here's what makes it special. You don't have to run the program with a clock. You can create these things called ring oscillators, which are just basically a loop of inverter gates, and it produces like a signal, like a crystal oscillator, but it's more noisy. Okay. Then you can take two loop oscillators and you combine them with an XOR operation. And this, even in audible frequencies, it produces white noise. Okay. Wow. So that's white noise. Now when I've done experiments, let me just grab.
That's incredible.
I want to go to a commercial, but because we've been talking.
No, you're fine. Yeah, we're not gonna do that for another. We got 2 minutes, and then we'll take our final one.
So I've made all these kinds of circuits to generate noise. But what do I like about the FPGA? Well, I can generate noise with one of those things, and then I can generate 1,000 more of them, and then add them all together. And my thought was, if the signal is very weak, but it's consistent among all the different devices, then if you add them all together, the noise should go down as the square root of the number of devices. But the catch was that after about 32 devices, they all interact with each other. They're all like working together. So it's like pendulums that all resonate with each other. So, but I find that about the best signal possible, and I don't use it all the time, that I can get, is if you add 32 noise oscillators. And I know some have other colleagues that like to do that too, where they have lots of noise oscillators, because that seems to enhance the signal a little bit. We still
don't know. And that's the beauty of this whole thing, is we don't know what carries them. We don't know what they want to jump onto, what they want to adhere to, stick to, however they manifest, however they do this. We need to figure out what's the easiest route for them. And I don't know if we're ever going to. That's the thing. If we're ever going to be allowed to. I don't know. It's crazy.
So I have some ideas for that, but we can talk.
Yeah, we're going to talk about those ideas. We're going to play some audio when we come back and everything, folks. Don't touch that dial. Tell your friends the good stuff's coming. Hang in there. More EVP Explorations on the way. We'll be right back.
Introducing The Haunted Voice by Todd Bates, a powerful autobiography that takes you on an unforgettable journey through life's darkest struggles and most hopeful triumphs. From working as a corrections officer to finding himself behind bars, Todd's story dives deep into the battle against alcoholism and addiction, revealing the raw, unfiltered truths of hitting rock bottom. But this is not just a story of despair. It's a story of redemption, recovery, and hope. As a seasoned paranormal investigator and EVP specialist, Todd also opens the door to his chilling experiences with the supernatural, weaving together tales of the paranormal with deeply personal revelations. The Haunted Voice isn't just a book, it's a lifeline for those seeking recovery, a guide for those facing their own demons, and a treasure for paranormal enthusiasts. Available now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Apple Books, The Haunted Voice makes the perfect gift for anyone looking for inspiration, guidance, or simply an incredible story. Order your copy today and discover the voice that refuses to be silenced.
"51 minutes past the hour. My goodness, what an amazing show. EVP Explorations. Those of you just tuning in for the first time or listening on the replay, watching or listening on the replay podcast, we have had an amazing conversation with our guest tonight, Michael S. Lee, an amazing individual. And we have barely scratched the surface. We're going to dig in a little bit deeper here. We're going to play some audio files for you as well. We need your opinions on those. Michael really needs your opinion on these so we can advance, so he can advance further in his work, of course. And that benefits all of us in the end. So feedback is important tonight, folks. So go ahead, log in there, put your comment in there. This is a safe place. I mean, it's obviously a safe place, and it's moderated. So don't worry about that either, folks. So everything's going to be just fine tonight when we get into that discussion when it comes to these audio files. But Michael, your story is absolutely incredible. This is not going to be your last time on this program. I will tell you that. We're going to have you back because there's just so much to talk to you about. It's just so interesting how, and it's amazing how you can take something so complex and address an audience and still make it easy for us to understand. For that, I thank you because this is some very complicated information we're talking about. And you were talking about some certain steps and things before we went to break. And I wanted you to go ahead and finish before we cover the audio.
Yeah. So one of the benefits of being, a spirit explorer is every once in a while, I do get a little bit of insight, maybe not the insight we quite need, but nonetheless, I was in a room. I suppose it was in spirit, whatever, but they showed me a device. It was, actually, it was funny. It was named after one of my heroes, Bruce Moen, who is also was an astral explorer. And it looked like a, I don't know, I guess it looked a little bit cone-shaped, although it's kind of irrelevant. The important thing was it was able to get very strong spirit communication and even video. Now, I was curious, how does it work? So they let me open it up, and I could see like I want to say steam, but it's not steam. It's frozen. It's cryogenically cooled. And basically there was this huge black chip in there, cryogenically cooled chip. So I was given just this tiny little insight of the future, something that may not exist even in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But the idea is that as you cool down electronics, the thermal noise will start to disappear, but quantum noise will start to play a factor. Okay, now this
Interesting.
So this gets to the question of what can we do with quantum noise today? So I actually went to one of my quantum experts at where I work, and he just, I don't know, I think he just blew me off. But nonetheless, another route was actually done a few years back by Australia National University. They wanted to develop an unhackable random number generator using lasers. And what they found was that if they could they could take a laser light, run it through a beam splitter so that the light could either go one way or another way, and then quickly enough measure that signal, they were starting to see quantum noise become more dominant than thermal noise. And so they thought, cool, now we have a quantum noise random number generator. But here's the mistake they did, and something that, at some point we need to contact them. They felt that the noise wasn't random enough. So they did some mathematical operations like encryption. Typically they run encryption on noise sources to make them even more random.
Sure.
Why wasn't that noise random enough?
Yeah.
Is it because there might be something in that noise that you're just ignoring and calling it noise?
Yeah. Exactly.
So there's hope. There's hope that in our lifetime, but I need to reach out to these folks that are halfway across the world, and basically
I think it's
ask
close.
them, can you give me a signal before you run it through your laundry, so that that you wash out all any of the good stuff. And maybe I can see if there's any patterns in that signal. It could be images, it could be sound, it could be anything. So there is hope. Quantum computers are a big thing. What's funny? You know what the number one problem with quantum computers is?
What's that? I mean, they're massive beasts.
Noise.
Things are noise, heat.
So they have to run lots and lots of qubits to be able to just get one accurate qubit. They have to, because there's just so much noise that they can't control. Even though everything is at I want to say like millikelvin. It's like, it's down to absolute zero. There's uncertainty. And that uncertainty, I think, causes some problems in their ability to make deterministic calculations.
Right.
But that uncertainty could be the field we've been looking for the whole time.
Exactly. And they toss that to the side.
I know they're like, it's so there's one other possibility for quantum. It turns out that if we had radio receivers that kept going, so right now radio receivers typically conk out around, we'll say like a software-defined radio conks out at like 6 gigahertz, but there is a 5G standard for like 26 gigahertz. And they actually use 26 gigahertz, I want to say a little bit for like some of the stuff like the airport, like they call it microwave backscatter. But if we can just keep going a little bit higher, about 100 gigahertz or terahertz, it turns out that thermal noise goes down to zero and quantum noise takes over. And so that would be the third way that we could start exploring a different type of noise. But right now, stuck with what we have, we're dealing with.
We don't have the tools. We don't have the tools.
We don't have the tools. We don't have the funding. And even if I had the tools, I might break them,
But that's the thing. Let's say, Michael, let's say that you had access to perhaps a quantum. One was given to you, said, hey, run this through there. Let's see what you get, because science is getting bits and pieces. They're getting bits and pieces of what we do. And I think they're slowly starting to put 2 and 2 together. Some of these things you just can't avoid. You cannot you can't just blow them off. And they may say they are, but deep down inside, I don't think they are.
We need a program manager we need someone who has the dollars, who also had a near-death experience.
Yes. Yes. See, there you go, Michael.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly. But
you have to
yeah,
put
but
that in the
these,
hands of somebody that knows how to use it, that knows.
yeah, no, and it's expensive. Yeah, I mean, most of this stuff is very, very expensive. The quantum computers are very, very expensive. I suppose I could secure some time, with the IBM, they do like offer stuff for the government. Of course, it would have to be under the guise of finding a bin Laden or something. But, it's just, there's a lot of possibilities, but yeah, it may take a little bit longer for us to get there. Yeah. So we're kind
Robert
of,
Monroe.
yeah. He might have went out and, bought the laser setup and got it. And maybe Tom Campbell could have set it up. He was a physicist, and
Alex is asking
okay,
real quick if you've ever heard of Echovox.
Actually, you know what? I have, and I actually enjoyed it a lot. This was before I started making my own stuff, but I actually enjoyed Echovox, and I feel like the reason that it could have some legitimate mode of action is because it's using it's basically taking sounds, reflecting them back and forth between the speaker and microphone multiple times, and that gives potentially a chance for spirits to modify some of those sounds. So I was kind of happy with it. I felt like they were saying my name a few times. This was back when I was dealing with low vibrational spirits, but I thought it was a good product.
Whoa, we got a big one here. Mikey is asking he's saying, I'm reading this for the podcast, folks. Such a very interesting show and very educational. Thank you both. You're most welcome. Referring to what Mike mentioned earlier in the show about near-death experiences, actually last Tuesday, I attended a Dr. William G. Roll virtual lecture hosted by Dr. Moretta, and I can't pronounce that last name, I'm sorry, on the subject of near-death experiences at the University of West Georgia as a current doctoral student. But what I found extremely fascinating is that they are, in a way, honoring this field in the academic community. That, that's something to think about, Mikey.
Yeah. So another person that's been doing good work is Professor Gary Schwartz at University of Arizona. But I'll bet you dimes to dollars all of his funding is private donors, because I don't think the government is going to send him a check.
They're not going to hand it over. They're not going to hand it over.
He's actually looking at like some high voltage techniques, and we found. I had a colleague. I don't like playing with high voltage at all, except for the plasma ball that he originally started with. But it seems like high voltage could have some possible, it could be something that spirits can toy with a little bit. Because
there has to be some kind of, to keep it simple, Michael, energy can't be destroyed. Okay. It has to be transferred elsewhere. And it is pure. I feel when one passes, for example, science is the body, supernatural is the soul, and what animates the body. I feel the two separate.
Right.
I feel the two separate, and it's a struggle. It's always been a struggle about life after death. I've talked to many priests about it, and it's so much, am I doing wrong? Am I going crazy? All these things. Do you run into these kind of things as well? Because your work is a lot more complex than what most of us do out there, Michael. Do you feel that this may be putting too much on you, a lot of stress? Does it is it something the average investigator could do down the road if there's proper GUI on there and everything?
Yeah. I think that as long as it's unfunded hobby, that kind of thing, you have to take time, in my case, from my family, from my work. It's not, that's true. I think of any investigator. I guess you probably used to always go out on the weekends or on days that you're off, so you're not like exhausted and you could stay up late. Right?
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, but as far as like beliefs in life after death, I believe. So for me, my foundation is the experiences that I have, when I'm dreaming. To me, ITC is like icing on the cake, and it's the one thing that if we could get it right, you wouldn't have to take my word for it. Right.
Right.
Because I can say, look, I'm a PhD scientist and I believe in life after death. And here's my proof. It's like, yeah, well,
And sure, with no doubt that adds to your credibility. With no doubt,
no, it
that
does.
add to your credibility.
Also, that I haven't written a book yet, so I haven't tried to make money off of this. But as soon as I try to make money off,
That's
of it,
because your book's going to be good.
You see, so there's always a way to discount people, but I took on faith because John Edward was so humble in that first book. He wasn't famous. He was so humble. He's like, you know what? I even did some experiments myself to verify, like, could my mom come through? And then his mom came through another psychic. And it's just, I feel like right now, everybody has to prove it for themselves. And that's not easy, right? So if we had a technology that's just basically spitting out, I hear certain things, when I go out there in the spirit world about the possible futures, the idea that, this is going to sound sacrilegious, but Jesus basically has a radio show.
Yeah.
No, and by radio show, I mean, he's going to have, is that when we can develop the technology, he will be able to talk
broadcast.
To all things of Earth.
Yeah, he'll be able to broadcast.
Yeah, he'll be able to broadcast here. And that's actually, in some ways, that's like the more preferred route. This gets into issues. One thing I was told, that if this technology became too far and wide and vast, that everybody basically would break the lottery system, because everybody would, they would use it for purposes that weren't necessarily for the best of our soul.
We would screw it up, Michael. We would
right.
Screw
and
it
so,
up.
and they basically said that as a default, that the radio show would be acceptable because it would be all about getting our souls to advance, and moving forward, and none of this using it for the ridiculously dumb purposes that I'm sure we can dream up.
Absolutely. And that's why I think something of that caliber should remain in your hands and in the hands of people you trust. And that's all. Because if the wrong person gets a hold of that, as well as I do what's going to happen. I'll sit here and say, but all communities are up in the air right now. It's in an uproar. It's crazy out there. But there are good people like yourself and several other people that are still into the research aspect of this. We still want to know why there's life after death. We're not worried how many film crews or followers the Messiah has. Let's worry about this research and how it works. That's what we need to concentrate on, because we're getting close, Michael.
What?
We're getting close. Very close.
That is the debate is what I hear when I listen to my streams. It's the debate. And now I'm going to start bringing up things that I wasn't sure I was going to bring up, but they talk about different things. So there's one being that's called the director. The director is in charge of making sure that my channel only goes to my relatives and esteemed scientists and whatever. It doesn't just willy-nilly go to anybody that wants to get out there. But there's another person they talk about. And at first I didn't quite understand what the heck they were talking about. And the term they use is the architect.
The architect.
And what is the architect? The architect, that reminds me, as far as I can tell, what?
That reminds me of the brain in the Matrix.
Exactly. It's so funny that they use that term of all things. And it's funny they used the term director, because that was in another sci-fi show about an AI. But the director actually has it sounds like a British female. Of course, it still could be AI for all we know. Sure. But the architect, as far as I can tell, is the one that runs this physical system here. And they are not terribly excited about this kind of technology. Now, does my technology work? I think it does. I believe it does, but I don't know for sure. But you can imagine that if we did get a working technology and it was able to clearly transmit reams and reams of information from the spirit world, that kind of breaks the illusion that society lives in.
Yeah.
Now, there's still maybe possibility that, Buddha comes through and he has a different viewpoint and whatever, but it changes the game entirely, because you now no longer have the control of information, or the lack of information that we currently have.
It's wide open.
So that is the debate they have is, and it's almost like, and I know this gets like paranoid, but it's almost like they're not allowed to help me. Now they can talk through the device. They can make all sorts of really nice compliments about me and everything, but they can't say, you know what, Mike, if you would do this, then it would work 10 times better. They don't give me that advice. And I'd be curious now, like with some of these new technologies like Staticom, do they reach a point where they can do a feedback loop where they say, hey, turn up this knob, down that knob? That I haven't reached yet. But I will.
In time.
There's so many things I could talk about, but
I'll leave it at that for now. We've got plenty of time. I mean, we got to get to some of this audio here in a second, but this is just fascinating information. And it's, to me, communication is key regardless. Mm-hmm. And if we can find a way to harness this, if the right people have that, like the program that you wrote and use, mm-hmm. if it is effective, which, we're going to listen to some of these and the audience will go through, maybe they may not say a word either, Mike. It's touch mm-hmm. or go with everybody, but it's something in the right direction, and the right direction is where we need to go. This is, to me, this is a massive breakthrough in communication. If you're able to pull this kind of information through tones and signals and pure will, I mean, it's bound to be a success one day. And it just needs harness. It just needs fine-tuned. It just needs a few, and what it probably needs to work completely 100% is probably so simple that none of us are going to think about it. And I think this whole thing with communication in the afterlife mm-hmm. is extremely simple. I think it's simple. I think it's something natural as well.
Yes.
And it is something that comes through when you least expect it, when you're not asking for it even. It's unpredictable.
The way to think about it is that all of us have a spirit interface device built into us. So whatever that mechanism is, we just need to reproduce it electronically, sort of without all the complications of, the human mind and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And we should be able to pick out the signal. I mean, we got plenty of amplifiers, that even human, we know that somehow our brain is acting a little bit like a radio with this sound. And I would argue our whole body, because I study Qigong, our whole body is.
I feel our whole body's a receiver. I really do.
Right. And so the problem is that hard electronic things, they're not as squishy. They don't have the ion currents that our bodies have. So everything is like more rigid. And so for them to move those rigid things is like, it's just not as clean. It's not as.
That's a good word to use. Not as clean.
Yeah.
It's not as clean. Yeah. It's just not. It's not the same.
It wasn't in our human bodies, arguably, were optimized for strong spirit signal.
Mm-hmm. That's all we have.
Yeah.
That it is what animates us after all.
Yes. We can't even live without it. That's right. You take the soul away from the body and the body just goes limp. It's like, it's not only an interface thing, but it's actually powering us, which is crazy.
That's the thing is, I think we're carrying our own answer all this time in each of our bodies, each of our souls.
Right.
And I think that's why a lot of people have these personal experiences that they do. They see an apparition, for example, no one else does in the room. I think it's personal choice. It could be timing. It could be the energy that person's putting off. It could be a lot of different things. But that is what, and we've got a quick question here, because I know Tony's a busy man. Tony Rathman himself stopped by. He's asking you a question, Michael. He says, Michael, do you think they can only answer so much information as not to disrupt the life and the learning you were here to gain?
Well, for me personally, I have a very high threshold of things that I've learned in this lifetime from doing my spirit adventures. So there's very little they could tell me, but there are a few secrets that I think they may not want to share with anybody because it really would tick off people.
Yeah, we have enough of that the way it is. That's for sure.
But no, actually, about a few weeks before my cat died, this was back when the signal wasn't even as good. It sounded like somebody was coming through, and they were very serious sounding, and they were telling me that my cat would pass away in a certain number of days. It turned out that it was within like 9 days of the actual, like when my cat actually, and I didn't even know my cat was just gonna zonk out one day. So, it's not, they probably wouldn't tell me if I'm going to get in a car accident tomorrow, or something. They probably wouldn't want to stop things like that. But in terms of spiritual understanding, I feel like I've really, like, in some ways, I know a lot more than a lot of people. So it very little would surprise me unless, once again, it was something that if I were to reveal that to other people, it would, set off a firestorm. So that's my thought. But the technology is the craziest part, Tony. Right? If they came back and said, hey, here's how you improve the technology so you just get these beautifully clear voices, I don't think they're allowed to do that. And if they are, maybe I'm just not the one to get it, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that could be the case too. I doubt it, but that could be the case. I think people like yourself, of course, the Rathmans, Ron Yacovetti, my gosh. I mean, brilliant minds like this in the field. You guys are the ones that are going to take this to the next level that we've all been researching so hard to do. And I feel it's going to be quick and painless when it happens. It's going to be accepted widely. Finally, I feel these are things I feel are going to happen before I pass. And I don't have much longer. But I think these are things that are going to happen before I pass because so many people have worked so hard at this. So many people have not only risked their time and they've risked their sanity. They've risked their jobs. They've risked so many things to get out in this field and figure out this just a simple question: is there life after death? That's all we want to know. And how? How do they communicate? How do they come? How do we go there? All these questions just rise up one after another. But
we want spirits to tell us what it's like on the other side. That's really what it comes down to. Because where I'm able to access is not a high enough realm to say with certainty what the soul experiences. It may be what certain fragments of our self experience or whatever, but it's not the full picture. And I feel like the spirits that are coming through to me, if they could start telling me what's going on, boy, it would be really interesting stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if they could throw us little hints, but it's almost as if they have their own laws, such as we have our laws. They can't break the rules, such as we can't break the rules, even though we try to. It's almost as if you know how you get so close, you capture that EVP or that file, that recording, and it says a fragment of information.
Yes.
And we may never hear the other fragment of that information ever again. And that's the part that kicks me in the rear, is if we can only find a way to put these sounds together and come up with a complete sentence that makes sense. Damn, there we go. I mean, it really is that simple.
I would argue that when Jurgensen first discovered these things, and it may even be before him, but he was probably one of the first. It's almost like a glitch in the matrix, right? It's like this. If whoever created the system was really, really careful, they might have blocked out everything, but they managed to let this through. And this is what we're essentially trying to hold on to. And when I'm picking out voices that are 1,000 times weaker than the noise below it, it's like I'm grasping for straws. But it's also because there's so much prevention for us to be able to interact, at least with electronics. Yeah, I do think though that at the human level, at the individual level, I feel like people can prove it to themselves. to some extent. And, there are mediums out there that are well, that just have done so much reading them of other people that it's like they're convinced. I mean, they would go crazy if they weren't.
Sure.
It was real.
Yeah, because they've seen these things they can't explain, and they can't explain what they've seen to other people because the other person's gonna they have an experience. Like me personally, I'm as sensitive as a brick, Michael, and I can't see certain things, so I have to use machines. Mediums, on the other hand, they can interact, they can go, and they can help researchers so much. I wish more researchers would use mediums.
Yes.
Because they can point you in the right direction instead of running around in a dark circle.
Yeah.
Your eyes and ears, just like you said.
Yeah. And yes, you could say, well, they hear it, but guess what? You put your recorder right there and you're going to get a solid piece of evidence that just said, it puts the question, there's no question.
It's a no-brainer if you ask me. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. If you have a guide to assist you, use them. And CL's got a quick question here. She says, well, how would it change us as a society if they did improved life after death? What would we do with the information? What an amazing question.
Well, the only way I can frame this truly is my own experience. Look, it makes me a slightly better person, right? Like I feel a little bit held more accountable than I did before. I have no desire to be part of any particular religion. It gives me a lot of confidence that it's okay that I'm getting older and that I'm going to die someday, because it's no big deal. It's just a transition. But it opens up new questions. And you see on these forums, people now are beginning to accept that there's reincarnation. So now the question they ask is why the heck did I come here? And why do I keep having to come here? Mm-hmm. So basically, answering the proof of life after death just leads you to the next set of questions that we have to deal with. Like, why do we keep coming back here? Why do we keep getting mind wipes every time we come here where we forget who we were in previous lifetimes? Why do we have to relearn everything from square one? And there's, a few other questions that get a little bit esoteric, but there's some questions. So I'll be honest with you, it just changes the discussion. So now we no longer question life after death. Maybe we spend a little less time worrying about extending our life to infinity. Mm-hmm. Maybe we stop fighting over religion as much, because we agree there seems to be like a general system going on that doesn't have anything to do with what you believe and more about who you are as a person. You know what I'm saying? It becomes more genericized religion, and we can kind of all accept each other as just being on the path of growth, rather than, I'm better than you because I believe in
Bingo.
This. Yeah. So,
well said.
So those are good things, but we have new questions. Like, what the hell are we doing here? Why do we keep coming back here? What is outside the physics that we seem to be observing with our telescopes and microscopes? And why are we missing that? What are we missing when we look at all these things? Why is there so much noise in quantum computers?
Exactly. It's almost as if we're stuck. And we're going to take our final break of the night here, folks. We're going to take the final break. It's a quick recording tip here for you. More EVP explorations on the way. The audio when we come back. Stay tuned.
Recording tip: never investigate while angry or upset. Emotional baggage can unleash negative energy that could totally mess with your EVP results. Got beef with your partner or team? Resolve it or sit this one out. Trust me, your vibes matter. Negative energy attracts negative entities. Don't let your emotions taint the spirit's airtime.
23 minutes past the hour. Welcome back, folks. That was a quick break here, and that was it for the rest of the show, because we have some audio to cover here. Our guest this evening, Michael S. Lee, he has developed so many things, so many breakthroughs as far as software is concerned, as far as noise generation. Just, you guys are going to, if you missed the first part of the show, I highly recommend that you catch the replay. You can find them all over. Mainly, you can find them on the website, EVP Explorations.com, where you can also now watch the show live from there. Just hit live and you can be able to watch the show live right there from the website. Now, you catch the replay on YouTube, Facebook, all those places. Just search EVP Explorations. It'll come up. I highly recommend it. And Michael, we've got some audio here. We have several clips. And I don't know if we can get through all of them. My goodness. Well,
Don't worry about it.
This isn't going to be your last time on the show. I'll tell you that. You're coming back. We can start with whichever clip. If you want to start in order, we can start in order. I've got clip 1 here.
Let's start with the first one because it's kind of an interesting message. So let's see.
Okay. Now, what Michael really needs here is your opinion on these audio clips, folks. Let us know if you hear anything, if you do hear something, what you hear, how clear it was to you. Try to be a good little investigator out there yourself when you're listening to these, because this is what's coming. This is what communication is coming to, folks, from the other side. So we need to get used to it and get on the bandwagon. It's that simple. It really is. It really is. So we're going to play this. Let us know your opinions. Wow. Now that, it was almost as if they were saying the word. They said the word and it was broken up into pieces and then put back together. That's exactly how that sounded to me.
Okay.
As if they said it and it fell apart somewhere and was put back together, probably by your program. I heard, and I heard the word cardinal. I don't know if that's in there. I heard the word cardinal.
Okay.
That's pretty impressive.
Okay.
And then now
does anybody else have any guesses before I tell what I heard?
Yeah, it's going to have a little bit of a delay, not much. We'll see if they put any chatter in there.
Okay.
And while we're waiting on the first response from that, we're going to pull up Jamie's comment here. She says, "This is so interesting. Thank you both. I'm convinced there is life after death. I just have some questions for a family member that passed. I need to know if they are okay." Yeah. Yeah. And CL says he sounded foreign.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll say
then, they heard what the loses quadruple.
Okay. That's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah, this is good stuff. You want to play clip 2 and see if they
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I heard on the first one and then
Go
we'll
ahead.
just listen to it one more time.
Sure.
So I heard "What a Musical Daughter."
What a musical daughter.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll play this again, and with the suggestion, of course, we're going to be listening for this too, but still, it may help put 2 and 2 together in our head and calm our brains down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Of course, you can hear it.
Yeah.
Hear it.
Now,
And
my daughter is very musical. I mean, she sings every night on her way to bed, and she loves being in musicals. So it's kind of interesting. All right. Okay, let's try number 3.
Number 3?
Yeah, just for fun.
Where is number 3? Did I get all of them up here but 3? I got 1, 2, 4, 7, 9. There it is. I got it.
Okay.
Here we go, folks. I can make out a female voice in that easily. I mean, easily. It sounds to me like a female voice.
Mm-hmm.
And she's very stressed.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't quite make out. Well, let me play this again here. And it sounds foreign.
Okay.
It sounds.
See, this is the IT experimenters, problem, because we tune our voices, especially to the different models. These clips mix so many different time periods of my work. Okay, so what I heard there was, "This is so exciting." So listen to one more time and see if
Okay. This is so exciting. Yes, I hear the exciting, and I hear her stress
Yeah.
the word exciting. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yes.
Okay, I hear.
And once again, they're all there. They're enjoying this. They're like, this is so exciting. Okay. All right.
This is interesting. Very, very, very interesting. And it's,
Okay, let's do number 9 before we run out of time. Unless we ran out of time, let's just do number
no.
9 because it's absolutely insane. Number 9. I
Okay,
mean, in
number
terms of
9.
what it's.
All right, we're gonna roll number 9 here, folks. Well, it's a male. I can hear a male voice.
Yeah.
And not to poke fun or anything,
Yeah.
but this actually, our radio system at work, there's
Yeah.
a place that leases from us, and they sound like this on the radio.
Yes.
Very
So
like they're underwater.
This one I applied when I was running in real time. I applied a strange filter to it. We'll have to talk about that next time.
Sure.
But this one is interesting to me because I don't quite completely pick out what it says at the beginning, but it sounds like, do people know Erwin Schrödinger?
Do people know
Erwin Schrödinger?
Erwin
That's
Schrödinger?
That's the guy that developed quantum mechanics.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Yeah, you mentioned that, and of course, I mean, why do you think that is, though, Michael? Why do you think that is, that once you get the suggestion from it, it's almost as if we don't know because we can't see the person saying it. We can't. If you
hear a lot of this, you start to hear what they're saying because you're listening for certain keywords. Then once you pick up the keywords, you understand how the voice sounds when they say those keywords. Mm-hmm. And then you can start picking out what everything else is. It's like you have to understand the accent first. And then once you understand the accent,
you have to be absolutely in love with language. And that's, sir, you are.
Yeah.
And, it has been just incredible talking with you tonight. And I can't wait to have you back on the show so we can finish these up and get into some more detail about this as well. Your strides, your breakthroughs, your work, I commend you. Oh my goodness, to break that out and to take that chance that you're taking and to risk your sanity, to risk all that there is to risk to communicate with someone we can't see or hear. To me, that's pretty damn incredible. And you're doing this from a local, so you kind of bring them to you, so to speak, the spirits, but yet you're in tune enough and you're experienced enough to put out only the higher vibrations to keep the low end little buggers away. And that to me, that's respect. So I thank you for everything, Michael. And it has been an absolute honor talking with you tonight. I can't wait till we catch up again.
Yeah.
But you definitely take care. Stay backstage if you would. I want to talk to you here in just a bit. I'll close the show out. Thank you very much, Michael.
You're welcome.
And all of you fine folks, my goodness, that was Michael S. Lee, ITC extraordinaire. I mean, this guy is absolutely amazing. And I wanted to remind you what's coming up here in the future weeks of the show. Next week, the 14th, on Valentine's Day, we have Preparing for Analysis. We'll be going over how to properly prepare your equipment, prepare yourself, prepare your evidence for analysis. And then on February 21st, the show is on my birthday. For the first time in over 22 years, the show landed on my birthday. That's never happened, folks. Pretty cool stuff. Now, On the 21st of February, we're going to be discussing analyzing and interpreting EVP recordings. So we're going to be having a lot of fun here the next 2 weeks. We got some great guests coming up as well. We got Lisa Crick coming up. We've got Nicole Tito coming up. Nicole Strickland's going to be coming back on. So many great guests coming up here for you as well, folks. So stay tuned. Find everything you need right there at EVPExplorations.com. That's a place where you want to go. The website is now open. It's ready for you. You can sign up free of charge. Don't forget to sign up for the new newsletter. A lot of good content in there for you as well. So from all of us here at Sacred Spiral Network and EVP Explorations, you guys have a fantastic and safe weekend. If you're going out there investigating, good luck. Be safe. Take care, everybody.